Good morning, my good friends. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to my channel. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let me introduce myself. My name is Andre Lefevre. Andre Lefevre, and I like to mouth off on things political, things cultural, things interesting. And today we're gonna read the headlines and some news, and most of all, we're gonna read between the lines. The first one up is a press release issued by Charles Krauthammer just less than an hour ago, in which he states that his cancer has returned and he has roughly 2 weeks to live. And let me read his press release. Washington, June 8, 2018. PR Newswire. I have been uncharacteristically silent these past 10 months. I had thought that silence would soon be coming to an end, but I'm afraid I must tell you now that fate has decided on a different course for me. In August of last year, I underwent surgery to remove cancerous tumors in my abdomen. The operation was thought to have been a success, but it caused a cascade of secondary complications, which I have been fighting in the hospital ever since. It was a long and a hard fight with many setbacks, but I was steadily, slowly overcoming each obstacle along the way and gradually making my way back to health. However, recent tests have revealed that the cancer has returned. There is no sign of it as recently as a month ago, which means it is aggressive and spreading rapidly. My doctors tell me that they're in their best estimate that I have only a few weeks left to live. This is the final verdict. My fight is over. I wish to thank my doctors and caregivers whose efforts have been magnificent, my dear friends who have given me a lifetime of memories and whose support was sustained me through this difficult month. And all of my partners at the Washington Post, Fox News, Crown Publishing. Lastly, I thank my colleagues, my readers, and my viewers who have made my career possible and give consequence to my life's work. I believe that the pursuit of truth and the right ideas through honest debate and rigorous argument is a noble undertaking. I am grateful to have played a small role in the conversations that helped guide this extraordinary nation's destiny. I leave this life with no regrets. It was a wonderful life full of complete with the great loves and great endeavors that make it worth living. I am sad to live it, but I have with knowledge that I lived the life that I intended. Let's say prayers for Charles Krauthammer. Regardless whether you agree with his political and philosophical views, he is a real man, a brave man, and a man of the intellect, and a true independent man. In his 20s, he suffered an accident and was paralyzed, first completely and then from his waist down, and he still remained a man, happily married to a woman he was engaged to before he was paralyzed. That speaks of a tremendous male and human quality that the men possess. So let's say prayers for him. He will be missed, again, regardless whether you agree with his analysis and his philosophies. He sustained an independent point of view through the Obama regime, and that was not easy for somebody who is part of the corporate-controlled media. Moving on. The next thing that I have is it's a very interesting story, kind of bombshell, if you will. I'm on Washington Times. The headlines: former State Intelligence Committee staffer indicted for lying to FBI about leaks. And this is actually a sordid story about a love affair and the incestuous relationship between corporate control media and the deep state. And let me read the story. The former top security officer for the Senate Intelligence Committee was arrested Thursday and charged with lying about leaks of classified information. The indictment indicates James A. Wolf leaked information to report on Trump's campaign figure Carter Page. The charges, 3 counts of lying to the FBI about contacts with reports, are a black eye for the intelligence community, some of whose members have been among the fierce critics of Mr. Trump. Mr. Wolf's arrest comes the same day as the New York Times said the Justice Department had seized a year's worth of emails and phone records belonging to one of its reporters, Ali Watkins. Ms. Watkins had a 3-year romantic relationship with Mr. Wolf, and she appears to be a person related to the indictment as a reporter number 2. The indictment says Mr. Wolf, now 58, started a relationship in 2013 with an undergraduate student who was also working as an intern with a news service. They exchanged tens of thousands of text messages over the next few years, according to the document, including one message where he admits he always tried to give you as much information that I could and to do the right thing with it so you could get the scoop before anyone else. The two also exchanged a number of messages on April 3, 2017. The indictment says the day Mr. Watkins, then reporter at BuzzFeed, wrote a story saying Mr. Page met a Russian spy. The indictment says reporter number 2 then appeared on a national cable television network to talk about the story, and Ms. Watkins appeared on MSNBC that night. Approximately 90 minutes later, Wolf and reporter number 2 had a phone call lasting 15 minutes, the indictment says. Roughly 1 month before the BuzzFeed article appeared at the Senate Intelligence Committee, received a classified document detailing Mr. Page's activities. That day, Mr. Wolf, who received, maintained, and managed the document, exchanged 82 text messages with reporter number 2, as well as 28-minute phone call later that evening, according to the indictment. Mr. Wolf stopped doing work at the committee in December and retired from his job last month, the New York Times said in a story posted on its website Thursday. Mr. Watkins in that story admitted to the relationship but denied Mr. Wolf had been a source. She said she had been told BuzzFeed and Politico, her previous employers, about her relationship. The relationship had ended by the time she joined the Times, the paper said. The Times said federal investigator had seized email and phone records, but not the contents of the communications. She was informed of the seizure February 13. Mark J. McDougall, a lawyer for Ms. Watkins, told CNN on Thursday that it is disconcerting that the Justice Department obtained his client's phone and email records. Where it was really necessary here will depend on the nature of the investigation and scope of any charges, Mr. McDougall told the network. The indictment also said that Mr. Wolf leaked information apparently also about Mr. Page to someone identified as reporter number 3. And the indictment says Mr. Wolf reached out to someone identified as reporter number 4 and offered to be a source, regularly sharing messages and phone calls. On December 15, FBI agents represented Mr. Wolf. FBI agent presented Mr. Wolf with a questionnaire about his relationship with reporters. According to an indictment, until Thursday, Mr. Wolf, under the penalty of perjury, told the investigator he had never had a personal relationship with any reporter. He also denied being a source for a story, adding that he did not know who was leaking classified information to the press. The Justice Department claims Mr. Wolf regularly met in secret with 2 of the reporters. The FBI questioned him about it as well as other journalists. Those meetings were often held in places unlikely to be unlikely to be disconcerted by other, including secluded areas of the Hart Senate office, building, restaurants, bars, and private residences, prosecutors alleged in indictment. Anyways, you can go to Washington Times and read the story. Extremely interesting. Looks like Trump is striking back, despite Attorney General Sessions' obfuscations and slow walking on any investigations related to that phony Russian conspiracy. Looks like there are good, aggressive FBI investigators in existence in Washington, D.C. Basically, part of the deep state that supports Trump is hammering the blows and putting the anti-Trump deep state on the defensive. Please don't misunderstand me. It is a internal squabble within Washington, D.C. It benefits us, the middle class, the free people, but still, it is still an intramural struggle within the Washington, D.C., so we have to watch him very closely. It actually benefits us when deep state tears itself apart, and let's just make sure it is tearing itself apart and diminishing in numbers. This gives me a segue to another story. This is Daily Caller from a couple of days ago. The headline is Trump Democrat is IT scandal is the key to much of the corruption we see today. This is referring to the Atwan brothers, who are Pakistani Muslim nationals who hacked into the congressional computers. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who at the time was the head of the Democratic National Committee, is neck deep in that scandal and implicated. And it also involves the phony Russian conspiracy play. 2 days ago, Lou Dobbs interviewed a Daily Caller reporter, investigative reporter, and I'm going to play you that segment. Fair use.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, disgraced information technology aide, is now set to strike a plea deal, apparently, with federal prosecutors. That's right, a plea deal. A hearing has been set for July 3rd following 7 delays in that case over the past 6 months alone. One and his wife face conspiracy and bank fraud charges, transferring money from the Congressional Federal Credit Union to Pakistan before trying to flee the country. And joining me now is one of the reporters who has been at the forefront of this story, reporting from the outset. Daily Caller investigative report. Luke Rosiak joins us here tonight. Luke, great to see you, and again, terrific reporting. This case is one of the most frustrating things to witness because it's inexplicable. The delays, the peculiar posture that's been assumed by the prosecutors and the defendants in this case, and the role of the former DNC head, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Well, here's how you explain it, Lou. This is about rigging the 2016 election. There was a second hack that occurred the same week that the DNC was breached. The same week that WikiLeaks started putting up those DNC emails, the House of Representatives Inspector General briefed authorities that there was this ongoing hack by Pakistanis who the Democrats has hired as IT guys. And ordinarily, they would have been arrested on the bat, obviously. But think about it, that Russian narrative that they just decided to start pitching that very week, you know how tenuous it is, how backed by nothing it is. You throw into the mix arrests of Pakistanis hired by Democrats and unvetted for a similar hack at the identical time. The narrative about Russia would have been impossible to secure. And as you know, that's all they care about is the narrative.
Yeah. And what's interesting in this, amongst the many things that are interesting, fascinating, intriguing, and frustrating, is where is the Justice Department now? Why in the world aren't we hearing about this from Jeff Sessions? Why aren't we hearing about it from a Republican-led Justice Department And where in the world is Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and how has she been given immunity? Is Juan somehow, has he been in some way co-opted by forces that are dark and sinister in the deep state? What is going on?
What it is that the handling of this case disproves the entire Russian narrative. Democrats don't care about hacking. They don't care about foreign meddling. What they did in this case is decide to knowingly allow the United States government to be hacked by Pakistanis for 6 months until right after the election so that they could peddle a phony Russian narrative. We know that they would go to any lengths to smear Donald Trump with this Russian narrative, but this is worse than we ever could have imagined. What the Democrats did here is treason. They allowed the United States to continuously be hacked by these bad guys so that they could spin this Russian narrative, because you couldn't have it both ways. If they arrested these guys, it's all over the media, and say bye-bye to any Russian narrative. At that point, it just becomes ridiculous for the Democrats. If fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 10 times, shame on the Democrats for being completely negligent with their IT getting hacked again and again due to their extreme negligence. This is by unvetted Muslims who came over through chain migration. This would have been the October surprise that would have ensured a victory by Donald Trump, and the House of Representatives withheld that knowledge from voters and
Debbie
put,
Wasserman
the
Schultz
nation at risk in the process.
And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, at the forefront of it all, as the person who also made it possible because she was in charge for the Russians, quote unquote, to hack the DNC servers and somehow convince the FBI that they should not bother the DNC with a little matter of national security, like having their servers hacked. Everyone, by the way, when you heard Luke say that they were unvetted, not a single one of the 44 House Democrats who hired these Pakistani IT aides, not a one of them conducted background checks on the folks who were basically running a ghost employee scheme. And we're going to be following it, and I would like, Luke, very much if you would join us here to tell us what's going on with this case. A plea deal. Are they trying, once again, they, being this government and this administration now in charge of the Justice Department, surely they would not be a party to concealing and putting this thing so deep that it wouldn't see the light of day.
No, they are. The DOJ under Jeff Sessions is covering up a scandal that exposes the entire Russian narrative as a hoax. It is within Jeff Sessions' power to demolish this Russian narrative once and for all, charge the Pakistanis with hacking Congress and exposing Democrats' hypocrisy and negligence. He has a list of witnesses, and his FBI is refusing to interview them. We've got the FBI refusing to accept evidence from witnesses. The evidence in this, they talk about, is it bank fraud, is it this or that? They have all the goods. It's in the server logs. This case is open and shut, and Jeff Sessions is refusing to bring the charges.
Luke Rosiak, thanks for your reporting. Thanks for being with us tonight and shedding more light.
Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate joining me more than I can ever tell you. Check out my website, wildnews.us, wildnews.us, and God bless you. God bless you, folks. Bye-bye.